All right, so now that you've done some blind contour drawing and you've learned how to start to feel that connection between your eye and your hand, we're going to do another exercise that still involves that same thing. You're still wanting to feel that connection where your eye and your hand are connected and in sync. The only thing now is you will be allowed to look at your drawing as you're drawing. Right? So I'm going to draw, for my tutorial, I'm going to draw the same still life I drew for the blind contour, and I'm going to go through the process pretty much the same, except now I'm going to glance back at the paper from time to time. But still, most of my looking time, probably about 80 to 90%, is still going to be mostly looking at the still life. So I'm only going to be looking at the page, just glancing back just to verify that I'm on the right track with my line. And the goal is to end up with a drawing that is all about line, is describing multiple different contours, edges of forms, and that looks like it's all one continuous line. So even though with the blind contour I wasn't allowed to lift my drawing tool, I can now because I can put it back where I started, but I'm always going from one point to the next. So I'm not going to draw lines over here and then draw stuff over here. I'm going to start from one point and then just journey around. So it's almost like I'm imagining there's like an ant or something crawling along the edges of these contours, and I'm just kind of drawing the path of that ant. So now the side of the jar hit the edge of that yellow plastic thing. And I'm drawing pretty slowly. And again, it's just because I want to make sure that I feel that connection. And as I'm drawing, I'm always looking at other parts I already drew, just to see, like, for example, where this part of this yellow handle, where it starts to curve, is visually below that part where the green bottle and the yellow thing intersected here. So I'm just going to make sure that I go beyond it when I start doing this curve part. And I know that proportions are not going to be 100% accurate. They should hopefully be more accurate than the blind contour. But again, that's not the goal with this. We're going to learn techniques later on that's going to help with proportion. But for now, it's all about just feeling that connection. So where to put this curve is kind of looking at this curve to help me with this curve, and because this back edge here should line up to this one. And trying to roughly make this length roughly the same as that as best as possible. And I'll go back to where the beginning of the tiki mug, or the bottom of it, is right here. And here is part of that ladle handle that's connected to that. I'll come back. I just retraced that line. I didn't have to necessarily, since again I'm not doing it blind contour, but I tend to like to really have the pencil connected to the paper the whole time. It's just fun for me. Okay, here's the mouth or the spoon of the ladle. The handle. Let's see, but I want to keep going to where it connects to the jawline of the tiki mug. I'm trying to guess where that should be, like here. And this is the shoulder, the tiki. So something I think right here. And his arm. And I just drew right through the ladle, so it's okay. So even though I know the ladle isn't see-through, I just drew right through it just to get to the other side of the arm there. There's his arm, get a little bit thicker there. Okay, so I'm at the tiki mug's chin and jawline here. The side of his face. His forehead. His brow. And his nose. Let's see there. So figuring out the direction of line can be tricky. Because this line here, I drew it going down, and it is going down a little bit, maybe not that much. And this line, this is the front plane of his nose, and it's that edge is going up a little bit. And as I'm figuring that out, I'm kind of imagining like the face of a clock. So if there's a clock here, and this was the hand of a clock, and this is the this is the hand here. It's what, going at 9:30, 10 o'clock, something like that. And that helps me, especially with those shorter lines, because sometimes it's harder with the shorter lines to perceive exactly what direction. So figuring out this angle, I kind of look back at this, because I know that this should be parallel with this. This is the forehead of the tiki mug. And here's another subtle change here. So let me go ahead and get the lip of the opening of the mug here. And there's slight curvature to it, I see. So there's two contours to the lip, the inside of it and the outside. So I'm describing both of those. And I may, even though I don't see it too well because it's in shadow, I may go ahead and just draw this. This is the inside of the cup to show the different planes on the inside. And then you have this, and then I'm going to bring this down to kind of connect to the back end there. So maybe I'll go back to the ladle, kind of finish that a little bit. So again, this is one of those subtle contours. Like there's the obvious outline of this vase here, but then there is a subtle contour here that just helps describe its overall dimensionality here. And then I may even come back here and try to connect the back end of the form that these things are resting on, because that will give me something for these to rest on. Okay, so I'll just continue from here and try to capture all of the contours that I can. Okay, so this is probably as many of the contours that I see. Obviously, proportionally, there are things that are not very accurate. Spacing isn't totally accurate, the shapes aren't totally accurate, but it is more accurate than the blind contour. And for the most part, I definitely did feel connected, and even especially really complex contours like this ladle handle, where at first I thought this edge was connecting to the front edge of the handle, it actually needed to connect to the back edge. So I recreated or reconnected that and changed that a little bit, and how it broadened here and then got skinny here, and then it kind of flails out here till it gets to the actual mouth of the spoon, or spoon of the ladle. All right, so hopefully yours will end up something like this. The objects you choose, hopefully nothing too complex. This is a good amount of complexity here, but also not so simple that like you complete it in 2 seconds.